Hmm. Welcome, Silver Sirens. Welcome to our masterclass, Embracing Simplicity, a masterclass on understanding and minimalism for aging women. I'd like to introduce our facilitator, Dee Scown. Over to you, Dee.
Thank you. Yes, I'll share my screen straight away. So has anyone heard of dostadning? Yes, a few arms going up. So it's called the Swedish death cleanse. And I think I came across it because after cleaning out a couple of households, I just was talking about that kind of stuff and it came up in my feeds. So it's actually a skill that we're supposed to turn to at around the age of 40. And I think most of us, and certainly I have, well missed that target. So the concept of that comes out of accumulating for the first 40 years and then starting to downsize for the next 40. So probably best if I tell you a story. So you can see this lady in the picture. Her posture is pretty awful. Well, that's what one of my relatives looks like. And she's in her 70s, so it's sad that she looks that way. She married young to a local farmer from the same town. They bought a home in that same town. She had 3 wonderful children, produced those, raised them, and they now have children of their own. The father-in-law who owned the farm, very close by, was a hoarder of machinery and farming bits. If any of you come from rural background or even just driven through the country, you often see farms with piles and piles of metal. And things might come in handy one day to add to a piece of equipment, to fix a piece of equipment. So, and they all thought, well, that's okay, because he'll sort it out later. Only he didn't. So it seems that hubby was hoarding as well, but he was hiding it at the farm. So that's okay. He promises to fix it up and sort it out. He'll get to it later, only he doesn't. So on top of that, you've got a lovely lady with kids who's been running businesses from home and has large leftover business stock and equipment and stuff like that from sewing and dressmaking. So there's a house full of gear as well. So they're busy with their lives all the time, and then comes age and illness. So life gets in the way, and the kids who've grown up now moved on. They've left all their stuff behind, their toys, their books, lots of other things. You've got all the other gear left behind. Work, business, it's all piled onto women in particular, and women live longer usually too. So what are people like us up against at the end of this time? Often we're cleaning up after somebody else. So, and we've got all our own stuff. Now, who here's got retro crockery or Tupperware left in the cupboards that they never use? I know I have. What about crystal, glass, brass collections? That was my mother's favourite. So, yeah, the detritus just builds up, and that's natural. That's what we do over life. And sadly, what's happening is the kids don't want the stuff. They don't want the silverware. They don't want the knickknacks. They don't want the figurines. They certainly don't want the china, especially if it's got any silver or gold on it. They don't want lace doilies. They don't want the cabinets. They don't want the really old computers because they don't work anymore. They don't want your peripherals. They don't want mattresses. Nobody wants those, sorry. It's just a bit of a disaster. So what we end up with is this history of we meet our partners, we start a journey, we build a home, we dress the home, we have the kids, you have all the special things you do with the kids, you grow your family, And then later, the grown children leave. And what's left for you is a huge pile. But when illness or divorce or something like that comes along, there's a massive load left behind. So look at her. The scenario she's living at the moment looks like it's weighing her down and she's carrying it all on her back. It's cruel, in a sense, that the men in this particular scenario have left so much behind, but she too has a large amount. 6-bedroom home, 3 living areas. It's massive. So who's going to help her? Well, we are luckily in this situation, but some people don't look at the situation early enough and they've left it to young people. And their stuff will end up in landfill. So I look at the task ahead of this family, and personally, I vow not to leave behind such a mess. I don't know whether you have space in your home that's like the junk room or the junk drawer. I think everyone's got a junk drawer. I think I've got 2 junk rooms. So do what I say, not what I'm doing at this stage of the game. So, and have you ever had to clean up somebody else's mess yet? Have you cleaned up after your parents, an aunt, an uncle, something like that? We've had to do 3 big cleanups in the last probably 5 years. We're both in our 60s and my husband's not well. So, and now we're going to have to help this other member of our family as well. So it's been our decision to go, hang on a sec, we need to get rid of our stuff while we're getting rid of everyone else's. Excuse me. So if you're watching this webinar, you're already thinking about it and recognising that you need to do something, aren't you? Some responses. Let's consider some questions to get you thinking about it. If you suddenly had unexpected guests, how easy would it be for you to set up the guest room? Any thoughts?
I can answer that.
Yes.
Yeah. We have 2 guest rooms. One has just been turned into my dedicated craft room, and the other one can be at short notice put into a state for visitors. My husband rolls out his photographic gear in there, but at short notice, and he's done that on numerous occasions, he can get order in there. So our guests can actually have that as a room.
That's great, because some people really can't. So another one, if your accountant called and asked for a particular document, how quickly are you able to put your hands on it?
Yep.
So most of you are probably business women, I'm thinking. So you're probably fairly efficient at that. But a lot of people wouldn't know which lot of boxes to look in. So, or if they have to go into the roof or attic or basement. If you became unwell suddenly, would others be able to find your data, your passwords, and the important documents? Data and passwords is a big one these days, because you need to shut down communication or at least circumvent communication. So if you haven't got a way of quickly locating that and having access for somebody else, you really need to think about that one too. And if you needed to travel for an emergency, how quickly could you find the clothing, the suitcases, all the packing items you need to get out of the house quickly? I just want you to think about these things. And lastly, if an item broke and you wanted to repair it, how quickly could you find the tools you need? Do you have a dedicated space? Do you have stuff scattered all around the house? So possessions need to be kept clean. Some need to be insured. They need care and protection. if they're not to degrade. So managing and maintaining our belongings can drain our energy and focus. So it's important that we have some kind of systems built into each part of our life to look after that. It reduces stress, which is the main thing. So the possessions are a burden. I know a lot of people that might be, new to them or something like that. But often once you've gotten rid of things, there's a sense of relief. And too many possessions do become a burden. They've got to be looked after. As we age, and I know I struggle, we're in a large house here. It's like you've got to keep the place clean, but it's so big. And then when you're trying to do other things and if your health fails, it's a huge struggle, and it just means things get lost in the mess anyway. So there's a shift in values in our younger generation, and they're prioritizing experiences over possessions. You'll see this in the media. Many of them can't afford homes, so they're choosing to create memories instead. Digitally, that can be saved. The things don't necessarily make us as happy as we think they do. So do you need 15 handbags, or do you just need maybe 2 good ones in two different colors? It's thinking like that and paring down the systems that you've already got there, to make life clearer for yourself. These young people, they don't want our stuff. They want memories, they want experiences, and freedom from the burden of excess. I don't know where you are living. I'm in South Australia. Houses are getting a lot smaller. They might have more living areas, but the storage is a lot smaller. So they don't need as much. So they're not going to want all those things that we have acquired from both our grandparents, our parents, and then we're, adding to it and passing it on. It's all too much of a burden. So the other thing to think about is, you know how we have larks and owls? Has anyone heard about that? The larks get up early, the owls stay up late, and we always marry the one that's the opposite to us. So, well, it's the same with hoarders and chuckers. So bowerbirds and woodchucks. You always marry the opposite. So if you're not the hoarder, or if you're a part-time hoarder, you may find that your partner is a hoarder. And you're not necessarily going to be able to change what they've done and what they're doing. But if you can minimize your contribution to it, that can make a difference in the long run. So are you the person with all the pretty things all everywhere, or are you the one that's pared down and got clear surfaces? So where's the balance that we need to find? So my hoarder husband has created things out of his hoard that have helped me out. So that saved us money. It's been useful. And we can't really complain about it in one sense, but I have said it can't be visible from the house. I'm on 9 acres, so it has to be down the back driveway. If I can see it from the front windows, I don't want to know about it. But at some point, we are going to have to deal with that too. And it's the same thing, his family member is facing, is these huge piles of farming equipment and stuff. So growth and compromise come from communication. So you need to pick your times to do this. So if you are dealing with someone else who's the hoarder, we can learn from each other. Hoarders can appreciate the value of letting go once the minimalists provide them with some of the tools that they need. So, and for individuals, if you're on your own, which one are you? Are you the bowerbird, or are you the woodchuck? You're probably already doing this a bit. Hoarders, hold on to your seats, because you're going to have one heck of a ride ahead of you. So Dostadning actually stands for Swedish death cleanse. So the idea is that you prepare for your eventual passing. So it can sound a little not nice, but it's just death cleansing is probably the most important word. This practice lightens our load. It makes our lives easier to start with, but it makes ours and other people's lives much easier later. So there's some great books out there. So books, but also we've got Australian Peter Walsh. I don't know whether any of you have seen his programs. He's great at helping people offload, and it's good to watch his programs because you recognise in the program where you might be hoarding things if you watch enough of them. And yeah, it's interesting to see the results afterwards, how people are much freer and they're able to have much cleaner environment because they've gotten rid of so much of their gear. So, and let's give our loved ones the gift of a clutter-free situation when we are either downsizing or passing. It's, yes. So while you're doing that, bring the mob in. So get ready to take photos if you're going to start doing this. Have a method to store stuff digitally and be sparing with that too. So, you know, we've got a culture where we take photos of absolutely everything, and we do need to be deleting most of those. But do you need to have the mother's 25th wedding anniversary gift that nobody else is going to care about? Or can you perhaps sell that or give it to somebody and keep a photo of it? And that's what I've done with my mother's stuff. She had some beautiful things, but the reality is I didn't have the space to keep them. I don't have the time to go through and dust every little knick-knack every week like she used to. I needed to clear the decks. I've kept some things, some small things, but a lot of it, if you've got a photo, you've still got a representation, you've still got a memory key to bring up those memories for you. So then bring in the mob. Bring in, that's what we call family is the mob. Bring them in, share the things. I'm aware that Faith has done this with her family. They've gotten together and yes, talked about how things are going to happen, who's getting what, or if there's special things that people want for them to either take it now or put the name on it, on the back of it. You don't have to give the stuff away now. You can just put a tag on it and say this belongs to, and keep it in your home until you're ready to move on. So you don't have to empty the walls and the cupboards immediately. And if it's all too much, break it down. So you just break it down into rooms, steps, whatever you're going to do. I saw a story recently about a guy who was very overweight and his doctor said, go to the gym. And of course, people that are really overweight struggle at the gym. They haven't probably been there, they don't know how to use the stuff. It's embarrassing, it's scary. And instead of saying to her, if you've ever joined a gym and then said, oh, I'm going to go every week, you know, and then 3 weeks later you don't go again. What they said to him was, go to the gym, walk in the door, stand there for 2 minutes and go home. And do that until you get to a point where you can stand longer or you want to do something. And just do that small step. Go in and go on the walker for 5 minutes and then get off and go home. And just do that over and over until your courage and your understanding of things is larger. You can do this with your Dostadning, right? If you've got a room full of boxes, pick one box. Go there. If it's really emotional for you, open the box up, look at it, walk away. Leave it open, walk back in the next day, have a look at it. you might want to pick something up. It can be a really slow process if it's going to be a big emotional issue for you. So don't force yourself to throw everything out immediately or try and, you know, do some massive job on a large home. It's not possible. If you can get a shelf cleared, if you can get a carton cleared, eventually that'll become a room. And then it's, you know, the next room. So this doesn't have to be some massive, scary thing. You can take it at very small bites. So where do you go from here? There is an order that I kind of feel is easier, especially for women. So we start with garages and sheds. So here's someone looking at bike tyres. Are you still riding the push bike? Do you need spare tyres? I don't. I haven't ridden a push bike in years. There's so much stuff that we tend to shove out into sheds, out into garages, and then go, oh, you know, it's there, but it's out of sight. So you don't approach it again a lot of the time. But so they're a good place to start. If something's been put out there and it hasn't been used for a couple of years, you probably don't need it. And someone else could probably benefit from it. So many times we put things out there that are broken and they're never going to get fixed. I think it was a bread maker and a food dryer that we came across a while back that we weren't going to fix the bread maker. Why did we keep it? So recognise those things that are unusable. Now, you'll also probably find boxes of kids' possessions out in a garage or shed. That's really common. It's time for them to pick them up. So they can, and if they don't want them, that's fine. They can take them to the rubbish. So put names on those boxes. And if there's something in there that's precious memory, a teddy bear that you remember giving them or something, once again, take some photos. So, and then the household stuff. So how many bundt tins are enough? Have you got, or cookie sheets? My sister-in-law used to cook a lot. She's got hundreds and hundreds of tins and cookie sheets, but she doesn't cook like that anymore. So she doesn't need them. So the household encompasses the kitchen, the laundry, and all those perceived useful objects. Spare flan dishes, that's what we had. And if you need one later, and this is something I haven't been used to, is, you know, you can borrow one. People will lend you dishes if you really need them for an event. And we've probably come out of a fairly wealthy period in our lives and we bought what we needed, but let's share more instead. So I had collected coffee mugs. I'm not likely to have 18 to 20 people in at one time for a coffee anymore. It's just not going to happen. Probably COVID changed some of that, but we don't have dinner parties anymore. People don't entertain the way they used to, and certainly the younger generation don't. They all go out. And I don't know about you, but many of us do this as well. We go out to entertain, we go out to celebrate. So do we need all those things? I remember who had what was the box called when we were going to get married? We save up for, I can't think what it's called.
Glory
yes.
box.
That's it. Thank you. I had a glory box. And we had so much in there, you know. Oh yes, we were going to have a dinner party with 16 sit-down guests. I've never done that. And I had a glory box 50 years ago. So yes, there's all those sorts of things. So it's thinking about those, and you'll be able to go through this later if you want to break it down for yourself or put it in a different order. So, oh, sorry. Linen and clothing. Oh, missed one somewhere. behind the picture of books, there's a picture of linen and clothing. Sorry. So that's another one. If the linen's starting to smell a bit musty, which it does when it gets older, just get rid of it. You can buy stuff fairly cheaply these days. Clothing, if it's larger sizes, promise yourself not to get back up there. If it's smaller sizes, maybe, but be realistic about where you're headed with your health and things like that. And if it's really out of fashion, just get rid of it. If you don't get rid of it, they're only going to throw it out later anyway. It's only going to end up in landfill regardless. So if you can find somewhere good for it to go, great. If you can't, then let it go. So books, media, and paperwork. Now, we covered the paperwork a little bit earlier, and I'll cover that in some bit more detail. I'm a book lover, so I've got probably 100 or 200, and I don't do the Marie Kondo 30 only. I think it was 30 only. Sorry, that's not happening, but that is my collection that I'm hanging on to. Yes, I'll pare it down later, but it's one that's important to me, and you need to keep what's important to you as well. You still want joy in your life. You still want those beautiful, special things that you love around you. So be discerning in this. They do collect dust and stuff like that, so hopefully you've got good storage for them. But yeah, hang on to the stuff that you really do love. Media, records, tapes, CDs. Everybody's got everything on the internet. Most people don't want them. Some people are collecting vinyl. Audio tapes and CDs, no, they just go straight to the trash. And yes, it's our music and we love it. And I am still running a CD player in my car, so I'm very old-fashioned in that way. But at least it's newer than the real tape. Do you have the equipment required to play those things? I don't think we've got a proper CD player in the house. I've got one in the car because of the age of the car. But if you haven't got a record player, you don't need the records. You, could probably get some money if they're vinyl. If they're CDs, you probably don't need them. You're probably accessing them with Spotify or one of the other things. If you thought it was vitally important to keep a particular version rather than digital, then keep it. But once again, be discerning about how you move forward with the stuff that you're carrying. So now I call these tchotchkes. I think I got it off the Nanny Fine program. Tchotchkes and furniture, ornaments, gifts. We used to always give elaborate gifts to people who got married. My mother had a crystal wedding and she had so much crystal, and I went through a charity shop recently and the stuff's not worth a thing. You can pick up crystal ware for $1 a piece, and I don't mean glass, I mean diamond cut crystal. So do you still want to be dusting it? I don't. Can you take some photos with a nice background and then pop it in the Goodwill? So ask the kids first, ask the family members first, do they have memories tied to those particular items? Or were they just display items? So often our culture has a lot of display items. It's about showing off wealth and stuff. And to be honest, I don't think anyone else is really interested in what you've got on display for a wealth concept. They're more interested in what they've got on display and hoping you have an interest in that. So, so if it's something really precious, sit with it for a while. Take a photo, sit with it. And next is the furniture, the display cabinets, the old wooden display cabinets. Some of them are worth money, but the number of collectors out there is getting smaller and smaller. And they're heavy going when you have to move them. So if you can offload some heavy duty stuff early on, you're not going to have to be carrying it literally out the door later. So, and then to have more free space in your living space, because as we get older, we need movement supports, perhaps wheelchairs, walkers and things like that. Often we've filled our houses and there's only small walkways. I have a relative that had just about 1.5 feet, if you were lucky, to go down the passageways. It was so full of things. But when that person became unwell, they had to move out immediately, and it was just a massive emotional change because they had to suddenly leave all of their stuff. But it was because of all of their stuff that they had to leave. It wasn't safe for them to be in that house. So you want to eventually create an environment where it's easier to move around. And so, yeah, that you don't have to shove things out of the way or just tripping hazards as we get older. So it's a lot to think about. You can rotate your furniture around if you need to. So, and if you want to display a small amount of crockery that you're hanging on to, if you just want to limit your number of furniture items, rotate them out. Every 3 months, put a different display up. Makes your house more interesting, changes the colours, and you still get to see the things that you really, really are passionate about. Now, back to the paperwork. Your wills and other legals. It's really important that you prepare your family and yourself for this. You need to get your wills properly written. In Australia, you need to do an advanced care directive, possibly guardianship, and other authority forms. I suggest you get a lawyer, a family lawyer involved if you can afford it. That's what we did, and we did all of the forms together, made it a lot quicker. But things like your advanced care directive, a lot of people don't bother, but you may be placed somewhere you don't want to be. And I've just seen a neighbour of ours go into a home and she's terribly unhappy. And she's not allowed to have many plants or anything else. She's got hardly anything. And that just seems cruel to me. Whereas we did an advanced care directive for my mother before she passed, and I stipulated that she had to have a north-facing window with a garden, and she got it. Now, you may not always get those things that you want, but the thing is, if you don't ask for it in your paperwork, you definitely won't get it. You'll be slammed in the back room with barely a window. And if you want your life later to run smoothly and at least comfortably, put down those things that are important to you. My husband hates stand-up comedy, so when he's really naughty, for want of a better word, I tell him I'm going to park him in front of stand-up comedy in his advanced directive. So, but that usually keeps him in check. Look, this is all going to feel like a roller coaster. So, there's the wills and the testaments. So, this is going to feel like a roller coaster. So, at this point, you're probably just deciding and assessing and realizing how big this is. And then it gets like huge in your brain and it's overwhelmed. And you think, oh my goodness, but if you attack it the way I've said, we're just going for the smaller chunks first, that will subside into a more comfortable situation where you're in the process. And then you'll move on to the next stage, which will expand a little bit, but not as far as the first time. So, and as you move through the next one, then you slowly unburden yourself, and then you're able to step through and arrive at a more minimal existence. So, I can't find my mouse. This is an example of a unit. This is a care unit. This has got its own kitchen, a little kitchen bench, chair and a sofa, a bed and a bathroom. So the circles actually signify rotation space for wheelchairs or other support uses. Could you move into something like that now? I couldn't. I'd need 6 of them. So how do we prepare to downsize to that small level that we may need to be in a much later date? And while it's not nice to think about having to downsize, if we prepare now, we're going to cope with it so much better and appreciate it for what it is in the end, rather than just being absolutely devastated by something that's had to happen to us after an event or illness or something like that. So go to the minimal, and that's the white minimalism's. They seem to say it's all about white, and you know that, and that would drive me nuts. But you can add bling with your other stuff. You can add bling with colour. So think minimalism, and then add back in some stuff that is light and doesn't, you know, doesn't literally weigh too much. Keep some art, keep some colour, and colour your spaces while still having it at the lower level of ownership. Oops. So that's our aim in the long run. This can take years, or depending on how old we are, it's going to have to take a lot less than years for me. But the Swedish people aim to start this at 40, and we're only learning about this in Australia in the last year or so, probably. So we're behind the 8 ball in one sense, but we've also got a lot of history we can look at from them to learn how to do this and how to make it the most pleasant journey possible, rather than a disastrous mess of everybody fighting over things. And yeah, there's the two extremes. You can make your process run smoothly, or you can ride the hill that some families are. Yeah, what do you want for your future? How are you going to move through this transition? So thank you.
Amazing. So Dee, so have you finished there, Dee?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Can we switch off your sharing screen so we can see
Yes.
everybody?
Yep, there you go.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I tell you what, that was so confronting to hear
Oh.
and to realize that the things that we hold so dear, that our children, or you know, the ones after, may not want it. I'm very lucky. My mother did this a long time ago. I'm here staying with her at the moment. She's in exactly that tiny space. She
Yes.
downsized from a 3-bedroom, our previous family home, and lives in a tiny space like that. She does it beautifully. It's so minimalistic. It's amazing. But yeah, just thinking about how confronting it is, because my partner's on the other side where his family has left a lot of things. So we're kind of cutting boxes of his grandfather's medals and things like that. And I just want it gone, you know, but obviously I don't have the sentiment, neither does he, and his son doesn't want it neither. So we're kind of deciding what to do with all that stuff. So thank you so much for that. That was brilliant.
Can I suggest that if you're talking about medals, approach history groups and other that are related to the medals, because they would just so love that history, and then they can store it for everybody forever.
Great idea. That's amazing. That's brilliant. Thank you. So let's go around the room. So I've got to jump off dead on time because I've got a client, but Jodie's going to take over to close. But let's give a chance for everyone to have include their voices. I want to go to you, Shirley. Just going to call as I see. Or if anyone wants to add something quickly, just please put your hand up. Okay, go, Shirley.
Okay. I lived in a big family home at Connells Point, and after my divorce, because I wanted to come and live in the city, I did some serious downsizing now. So I live in a small apartment, a 1.5 bedroom. So I've sort of done some of the hard work, but in some ways I haven't, because my ex-husband built a home for the family, a log cabin up the Blue Mountains. And so whenever I don't want something, I send it up to the log cabin. And I was just thinking, I need to go up to that log cabin and be as ruthless as I am this end. So I'm fairly minimalist now. But while I've been sitting here, I think I want to do that drawer. I've got so much crap in there. So it was I found that really good. I'm going to start tomorrow. My drawer's here. But I guess the other thing, because I did a little bit of homework for this, and sometimes I find I need the psychological sort of understanding and underpinning to carry me through. And one of it is, like, I've kept a lot of diaries during the years, and I keep thinking I'm going to write my life story and want those diaries, but I don't want to throw them out because there's some secrets there. And then I thought, you know what? I have to throw them out because they're my secrets and no one else's secrets. So I can still write my life story with memories. I don't need those diaries and those secrets. So that's just, and I read that in one of those little books while I was doing some research for this, that they're your secrets and no one else's. So you don't have, you don't have to keep them for, I sort of think, I want people to know who I was. No, I don't. And so, so thank you for this, Faith, and the invitation to come to this. I found it really very thought-provoking and very helpful.
Yeah,
Shirley, you can record your stories how you want to record them, and then they're in audio format and they don't take up any space. And then you can be discerning about what you record. And that's an easy way to write a book.
Thank you. Yes, because I never quite get down to writing it. Yes, so thank you.
Amazing. Okay, who wants to go next? Joe, is that you trying to unmute yourself? I see you. Yeah. Should I try and unmute you? Let me go and try and unmute you. Okay, I can't. Actually, I've made you host, Jody. Can you try and unmute Jody? Joe? Okay. Well, maybe while you're trying to do that, is there someone else who can unmute who wants to chat, and then we'll come back to you, Joe? Yeah, Cheryl.
Yeah. I'm doing a bit of purging at the moment. I'm going through a redundancy. So at home, it's given me an opportunity to finally tackle my study area. So paper I find very suffocating and de-energizing. So it's been quite a process to actually step into the study and start to purge, which I have been doing. But tonight, with hearing the story around wanting to write my own story, I think Shirley, you were talking about that. I was actually thinking I've got lots of papers connected to documenting the family history, and I haven't tackled that. But to me, that's really sensitive papers, and sensitive, valued papers, and I don't want those to be lost before I actually get that story written. So I guess tonight's giving me a trigger. I need to take some steps to make sure that doesn't get lost. That actually does happen.
Yeah, secure the good stuff and get rid of the rest.
Yeah.
And is there anyone else in the family interested in genealogy?
They're interested in the result. They're not interested in doing the work. It's me who does the work, and I'm okay with that. And in terms of valuing it, I came across an absolute stranger years ago who had done like me, put in the work, and other members didn't, but they wanted the end product. And she happened to be in Kmart trying to find a folder for it, and she was just going to hand it over. And it was me who she didn't know from a bar of soap going, that's highly valued. Do not just hand it over. Do it as a gift, like at Christmas or someone's birthday, to give the signal that it's to be valued.
Yes.
Total stranger giving a sense of it's to be valued.
Beautiful. Okay, Joe, I noticed that you've unmuted, so we'll go over to
Yes,
you.
I'm muted now. I do ancestry.com so that I can just take photos of all of the documents and things like that and just put it up there, because I know that I'll do the work long before anyone's even interested. And so my kids are not interested at all at the moment, but I don't want to just let it slide. I just work on it all the time, just keep on putting things up. And the other thing for me is books, like I think as an academic, I had to give up all my books when I left my office to move into my apartment. But it's sort of like now doing the next round of all the books that I've had since then, I don't think it's going to be too hard. I just have to get, my head around it and things like that. And also the fact that a lot of the things in my files no longer needed. Everything's digital. It's just a matter of organizing the online environment as well. And then just leaving things like the will and directives and things like that fairly in that place. I love the idea about the passwords, but I want to make sure they don't go up till I'm well and truly ready. So I think I've worked too hard for that one. Yeah. So the other thing is letters. I know we don't write letters anymore, but I've got all these letters from my mother and I just can't give them up yet. So that's interesting. And her stamp collection. I don't know what to do with her stamp collection other than, because it's worth a lot, but I don't know what to do with it. So
okay, I'll address the stamp collection. If it's the collected folders from Australia Post, if they're those kind of stamps.
Yes, there's some of those.
Yeah, they're not worth anything other than face value. Use them to post letters or post the old letters to a relative or something, because they're actually not worth anything. The other more unique stamps, get them valued. There are clubs in every state. So get them valued and they may be interested in buying them at some point, or you can pass them on. But those folders that Australia Post sells, they overproduce them so much. We had a crate of them and we just use them for stamps. We were advised to.
Okay. Okay, there's so much that I need to do. Like my degrees and things like that, I have them in frames. I can no longer put them on walls. I don't have enough walls for that. So yeah, I'm
scan and digitize.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Right.
How about you, Chanel?
Oh, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I come from a family where there is hoarding. My gran kept it under control, where she just built a big house and that storage. And then wasn't until we had to pack her up to move to the Caribbean, we're like, where was all this? Where was all this? My mum's bad. Mum's a hoarder. My aunt, we can't even go in her house. What you see on TV, that's her place. Like it's bad. And I'm like, we keep stressing. I'm like, you guys need to talk to your sister. She needs to help, because if an ambulance, they'll be like, no, we're not going in. She's dead. See ya. They're leaving. They won't even take her. So I actually am trying to force myself to go through my wardrobe. So I've literally got it all over my kitchen and my bedroom, because my bedroom's in the loft conversion. So I have a dumping ground in there. But I just need to do something, because I actually ended up slipping and hurting myself on Monday when I was working from home. Like, I've got to work from the office, because if I'm home, I'm dangerous to myself. And I've got a 10K run next week, and I'm like hobbling. I'm like, this is my run. But I'm like, okay. So it's been so good, honestly. It's been so good to learn and to give it back, because my mum's just started doing her will, and it is that bit of having to address that. But I get it. Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. So just thank you.
The sooner we do it, the better. I wish I'd started 30 years earlier.
Great.
Can I
Okay.
just ask,
Can I
Yeah.
just ask a question? I've
Yeah,
got my,
Oriana. Yeah, you go for it, Oriana.
I've got a throat infection, and I
Yeah.
don't want anybody in the household to get sick. I have taken photos of my grandmother's clothing because I like the era, so that's fine. But I also want to find a place where they cut up clothing and make it into something else, because I'm sick of all the clothing going into landfill. A lot of it that's given to Vinnie's and all those other secondhand places still goes into landfill, despite the fact that they say they sell it and all the rest of it. And a lot of it gets sent to third world countries and ends up in their rivers and just thrown all over the countryside. So I don't know if there's anywhere. I've heard of a lady at New South Wales University that actually chops up clothing. She's trying to find a way of, because we buy too many clothes here in Australia. We're one of the worst. So I don't know if anybody there knows about anywhere where I can actually cut it all up and make it into something.
I live in a rural area in South Australia. So there's quilters groups still, but we're talking about much ladies who gather at places. But I would be looking at quilters groups and asking if anybody custom makes quilts, because then provide them with
blankets are useful. And then I've also heard of some groups making new clothing out of patches of clothing, like jackets and things like that. So I wouldn't mind sending it there. There's a lovely Aboriginal man that does all that. So I've got to look into it and try and find a better way of making use of it and recycling it, because I'm not happy with the way we chuck our stuff. Yeah, anyway, that's me. Yeah.
I know of a place a very long time ago. I remember panel beaters, for example, or companies that actually wash and clean cars. They used to get a lot of things like T-shirts, and they used to buy these bags full of clothes that had been cut up.
Yep, that's right.
So that it was utilised, so it would get a second life at least. So I actually do that. So if I get, say, for example, something that's quite cottony or stretchy, I'll cut it out and I'll use it as a cleaning cloth around the house instead of going to the shop and buying some, you know.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do that. And I can maybe find rag places, but I'm pretty determined not to keep sending it to Vinnie's, because they're overloaded as it is. They say they're not, but they are. Yeah. Okay, thanks, guys.
That's a great idea, Christina. That's brilliant. Yeah. So I'm going to jump off soon. Like I said, Jodie's going to take over and close off, but we want to be respectful of Dee's time. So Dee, please don't feel like you've got to stay for too long. But if there's a few more comments or questions, please continue. Okay. So who would like to add anything?
I'm happy to carry on. Thank you for hosting. Really appreciate it. Thank you for hosting. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. I'm going to go over to Julia.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if you want to get rid of anything, whether clothes, old documents, old books, stamps, etc., if you look up any Facebook page, people who do junk journaling, create junk journals, there's one called Treasure Books, and then there's a few other pages related to junk journaling. They are calling out for stuff like that. They actually go to op shops looking for, you know, material, lace, old documents, old newspapers, stamps, etc. So that's another outlet for your things.
That's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
And
it's called junk journal.
Junk journaling. Junk journaling or treasure books. Look up treasure books on Facebook. Or any Facebook page related to junk journaling or junk journals.
Thank you for that.
To scrapbooking as well. I do scrapbooking, so I've got a craft room too. And with fabrics, I've actually scanned fabrics and used the scanned picture as a background and stuff as
that's
well.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
that's interesting.
So I do junk journals. I actually just started doing it a couple of months ago. So yeah, throw things my way.
Where are you?
And as far as you say that the gardening is Swedish desk cleaning.
That's right.
Another good idea, like what I'm doing at the moment, because I've just turned 60, creating a next of kin folder. where I'm putting all the things that you spoke about, you know, passwords, wills, instructions to my next of kin, etc., all in one folder. And I've told my daughter where to find it if anything happens to me. She won't go to it before anything happens to me. Yeah, so I've told my daughter and my partner where to find it. So
Excellent.
yeah.
I like that idea, Dee, that you were saying earlier on about vocally recording. I'm just trying, I think Cheryl was talking about how she actually had quite a few, not Cheryl, sorry, Shirley.
Shirley,
Talking
diaries.
about she had a few diaries or something.
Yes.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that's got that sort of thing. So my one's a little bit different. So I started collecting it from when I was probably 13. And it probably, well, sort of stopped. And I would write long poems and, you know, things like that into it. But you wouldn't believe it that when I actually came back to Australia, the circumstances were quite dramatic. So I literally walked away from everything. And it went into storage. But the problem is I don't know how many people have actually ventured off. Well, I'm probably lucky because it's in English. And the boxes are in Italy. So I'm probably, the chances of them understanding is probably minimal to none. But, you know, I've wanted to write some journals, my autobiography, but, you know, I like the idea of vocally doing it, you know, transcribing it that way. So that's a good
You're
idea.
more likely to remember it, and you will remember what's there. If you struggle with that, seek hypnotherapy or something like that. If there's something you want to remember, there's lots of other ways. Our brains don't forget anything. We think it does. It's just stored in the back blocks, a bit like the back room. And we can bring that forward when we want to. So, so don't, if you believe you can't access it, you won't. So if you start doing your audio stuff, you know, your poetry might be fantastic. We might be missing out on something spectacular. Please, if you can write some of it again, do. Yes.
Yeah, but it's decluttering. It's amazing how, you know, Chantel was saying about how back in, you know, it was sort of her mum and things like that. And I didn't think my mother did until I turned up one day and opened a 2-car garage, and the car was barely slipping in there. And I'm like, what is this? Oh, I've got to send it away and I've got to do this. And then when I went into the house, the main rooms that were being used were decently set up and, you know, they weren't cluttered. Then you open up one of the other rooms and you just couldn't even take one step in.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of that habit sort of followed me, but not too much because I couldn't stand it. My son's a great hoarder though. He's really good. He brings everything home.
Our earlier generation, this comes out of, there's two things that have contributed to this. Wartime and depression, when you had nothing. So if you got a pair of shoes, you hung on to them even if they were no good, because you might not get another pair. So you've got that wave of depression where nobody had anything. Then we come along and we've got a consumerist society that has more disposable income. And I know I'm hugely at fault here. It's just like, oh, we'll just buy a new couch. Oh, you know, we'll just buy another bookshelf. And it just builds and builds. And now we're coming through a more depression-like era for the younger people. And so, it's that cycle of finances the world goes through. We just happen to have been on, the end where there was some money and we've spent it all on stuff.
Yes.
Now
That's typical in my house because I've come from a background of poverty. My daughter didn't, and my partner not so much. So I will use things until they break. Whereas as soon as something, you know, and I won't give it away. Whereas as soon as something you know, it looks like, you know, it's going to break. My partner would buy something new. My daughter would buy something new, and I still don't want to give it away. So that's how hoarding begins in my home. And also, you know, giving, I would prefer to give something away which is still in really good working order, whereas my daughter's partner would just want to chuck it. He always has excuses, you know, it's dangerous, it's electrical, we've all already used it for 2 years, you know, things like that. Yeah. But I still see, you know, there's use in it.
Yeah. Look at the culture we've built. Replace your phone every 2 years because that's when your contract's up. Why? So, yeah, we buy phones outright, and we've walked into places and the lads have never seen a phone that old. So it's changing the thinking. We have to change our thinking, and yeah, it takes a while, but it's going to be worth it. You'll actually have more expendable income again later if you get rid of the stuff, because you're not wasting time, energy, and cleaning products, for that matter, on keeping it all.
Oh, I've become
Yeah,
really
I'm
good at
working on
selling
having
things.
an abundance mindset.
You can sell a lot of stuff as well, which is great.
Yes. Yes, but not all, just beware.
Lee, are you available for coaching?
Sorry?
Are you available for coaching or not?
I can be. I'm actually not working my business at the moment because my husband's unwell. But if you want to touch base with me, I'll put my email address in the chat. And if any of you want to email me,
Thank you.
I'm happy to have a chat.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I suppose we better let Dee go. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. I have learnt so much. I was hoping you wouldn't notice the pile of books behind me, but
I totally get you.
they're the one thing I can't part with. But I'll make sure that this recording goes into our newsletter. And thank you once again, ladies, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you
all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jodie. Appreciate it.